I started this set breakdown series at the very beginning of G, and now it's finally time for the very last breakdown of the G series. Well, apart from Bermudas, of course. Hello and welcome everyone to the G-BT14 set breakdown, which is going to be the last, well, technically last G set that we're going to be breaking down. There's still the Bermuda booster, which belongs to G, but it's not really part of the anime, I guess we can say. So it's kind of like in this in-between phase before we shift into the new generation. So I am excited for that, but this set brought a lot of new things with it, a lot of really good clans supported. Honestly, like, I don't even know what order I'm going to break things down in because I like all of them. And on top of that, we also have a lot of cards that don't belong to the clan supported, like promos, as well as things that are used in more than one clan. So let's get right into it. First off, I'll quickly go over the Cray Elemental, which is not Gize, but is Shadow Elemental Bikkun. So his skill is, when he's placed on Guardian Circle of your opponent's Vanguard, attack 2 or more times during this turn, choose one of your units and it cannot be hit until the end of that battle. This is actually quite good in Grand Blue. I think it actually enhances Night Rose quite well because you can put this down with the G-Guard. And so the timing of this is basically like on the second attack you can already use it, because it doesn't say when your opponent's Vanguard has attacked, but attacked means like you're already past the part where like he's already declared attack, is sort of how I interpret this, and I think that's how you're supposed to interpret it as well. So as long as your opponent's Vanguard has restood once, you can actually use it. So that's the, well, usual Cray Elemental for this set. Then we have the two box toppers that we finally got in English, which are Night Rose and Harry. We're going to go over Night Rose first, which is Pirate King of the Roseate Twilight Night Rose. Her skill is a once per turn +1 and Persona Flip. Choose up to the number of cards in your drop zone as the number of face-up cards in your G-zone +1. Call them to separate rearguard circles as hollowed, and if you called 3 or more cards, this unit gets +1 crit. This is a really nice skill because basically even on first stride you can get 2 units out. Sure, you won't get the crit, but that's still +1 for 2 units, which is also quite nice. And after that you're pretty much always going to be getting the crit. It's nice that she calls them all as hollowed because then you can just, you know, get rid of your field like just like that and trigger any on hollow effects as well. So I think she's actually a very nice card. Her second skill is also really good. At the beginning of your battle phase, choose one of your units for each card with Night Rose and its card name in your drop zone, and they get +5k until the end of turn. This is also really nice because for each Night Rose that you have, so even if it's like 2 or 3, you can give 5k bursts to different units that many times. So it's really cool because you can essentially turn things into 21k attackers quite easily, and her flavor text is very hot. And on top of that, the nice thing of the second skill, because at the beginning of the battle phase you can actually activate it, spread out the power, and then still in battle phase call out one of the Night Roses to use the skills, and then, you know, still put them back in the drop zone after that, and, you know, be able to use this Night Rose again next turn. So overall, very nice card. I think overall the MVP of the two, however, is the Harry, Masquerade Master Harry. So he has Magia. When he attacks, you counter +1 and Persona Flip, and then choose 2 cards in your other circles and put them into your soul. If you do choose up to 3 cards from your soul, call them to separate rearguard circles, and at the end of that turn put them into your soul again. So this card is actually one of the first ones in, well, in terms of printing, this was the first card to counter Link Joker, because this came out before G-BT12 in Japanese, so this was actually the very first time that Link Joker was countered. And so this is actually already a very good first skill because you can put in locked units into your soul and then call out a fresh new batch. And, you know, even not against Link Joker, this is still really good because it just gives you a lot of fresh attacks, really opens up a lot of combos. I think Yellow Card Vanguard also did a pretty good combo video on the new Harry, so you might want to check that out. But overall, Harry is really good. But the second skill is all your rearguards with the Magia ability get +3k for each face-up card with Harry and his card name in your G-zone. So even on first stride, you're getting a multitude of attacks plus basically a 3k buff on all your Magia units as well, and it's only going to stack throughout the turns. So really, really good card. It's like a self-contained present. It's just really nice and plays out very well. Next, we're going to go over the 2 CRs. First one of which is Zerath Dragon of Zenith Peak Ultima. So this is the one for United Sanctuary. It does need Ultimate Stride to be played, and when you do stride it, you can count on +2. If you do search your deck for 4 cards, shuffle your deck, call 2 cards from among them to your separate rearguard circles, and put the rest on the top of your deck in any order. Until the end of turn, choose all of your units for your trigger effects. This means that when you check a stand, your whole field stands, but obviously if you heal, then you only heal once, and if you draw, you still only draw once. but crits and stands will be spread to everything. So if you get a crit, you give it to everything, and that's really nice. Overall, this is a good Zeroth. I think it's the second best, personally, because it's really good for the clans that it is in. For Angel Feather, it's low-key unfair because Angel Feather has revived very hard thanks to Ultima, especially Gavriel. Gavriel likes Ultima a lot, Nocia likes someone else a lot, but we're going to go over that someone else after a couple more cards. Ultima, in my opinion, is really good. Not one of the ones that I can tell you not to play. I think he's really good, especially in Angels. I literally cannot say you can't play this because you need him. But in other clans, like in Royals and stuff, you can actually slightly go without him, just because a lot of your strides are actually quite good. Same goes for just a lot of the United Sanctuary clans, but this one is just, he is good. He's really good, and like, just, you know, fitting. However, the best ZR in the game, and honestly this is very hard to top, is Zeroth, Dragon of End of the World, Dusto. Once again, ultimate stride, and when you do stride him, counterblast 2. If you do, until end of turn, your opponent's vanguards and rearguards lose all of their abilities, and their grade and power increase or decrease to 1. If the number of cards in your opponent's damage zone is 4 or less, choose one of your opponent's vanguards and deal 1 damage. Perform a damage check, triggers will also activate. So, this at one point was even more OP, but it got nerfed by a petition. This used to deal 6 damage, now it can only deal up to 5, and, you know, but even without that, this card is insane, because you remove all abilities, you put their power down to 1, you put their grade down to 1 so they can't G-guard, they can only perfect guard and guard with raw grade 0s, and so in a lot of decks in Dark Zone, this is just insane. Spike Brothers just abolish this card, they do so much with Dust, it's crazy. Like, Time Leap comes back because of Dust. Magia Dust can do so much with Dust. Dark Irregulars as well can do so much with Dust. Like, it's just such an insane card. It's actually just ridiculous how good this card is, and like, it's hard to say much about it just because it's that incredibly amazing. And now the last pair of cards that we have to go through before we go into the actual clans is Neon Gize, as well as Dragon Deity of Destruction Gize. So this is the final boss for all of G. So this is what everything has been leading up to, so let's go over Neon Gize first. It does have a small misprint. So it says when you ride this unit, but it's actually when you ride on this unit, you put this card into your G zone, but it doesn't count towards your GB. But it does count towards skills that say, like, if you have 2 or more face-up G units, right? So it doesn't count towards GB, but it counts towards face-up G unit count. So that's one thing, so it just activates when you're right on top of it. And then in the G zone, it has a continuous effect. For your trigger effects, change the power increase to choose up to 1 Zeroth Dragon from your G zone and bind it face up. And then it has a second continuous G zone skill. The Zeroth Dragon in your bind zone cannot move to other areas. And finally, Ultimate Stride, Dragon Deity of Destruction Gize. So in the Stride step, this is released when your Vanguard is grade 3 and you have 5 different types of Zeroth Dragons in your bind zone, meaning if you've triggered 5 times. And then you choose a card with the same card name as your Vanguard from your hand and discard it. Remove all of your other cards from your Circles, Soul, and G Zone. Flip this card over and stride it on your Vanguard circle. So when you do flip it over, you get this bad boy, which says the world will be silenced. So, first of all, when he's stridden, choose 5 Zeroth Dragons from your bind zone and call them to separate rearguard circles. Then, continuous. You cannot ride nor call any rearguards other than Zeroth Dragon. All of your other units do not return to the G zone and cannot be affected by anything other than this card and your Guardian. Your rearguards cannot be attacked. And then at the beginning of your turn, deal 1 damage to your opponent for each Zeroth Dragon on your rearguard circles. So, this self-contained bomb of a card has 30k base power, which will stay, and it's been... I honestly, a lot of people asked for my opinion. I was busy moving out of Japan, so I didn't have time to make a video like that. I think that it's an interesting card, but just like you've heard from other people like Solemn Vanguard, I don't like that it's designed around RNG. I don't think that's a way that you should be approaching your card design. I don't think it's very efficient. I still think it's cool as hell, and the art is amazing, and the theme of the deck is really cool. And now we also have decks running around that can actually make use of Gize, like NoCL, which is just ridiculously good. And so I think like it's an interesting card. I just don't like how RNG based it is. I think that makes sense. I think that's a lot of people's consensus as well. But I think it's a cool card, don't get me wrong, and like I would play it if I had a Gize pack. I could get a Gize, but I only played 2 Zeroths in the game, so I don't really feel like spending on 3 more Zeroths when like we're gonna get the new mechanics soon anyway, so it's just gonna be a bit of a hype bomb, so I don't really have much of a reason to do that. So that was Gize. It's a strong card. I think, you know, it's also a very expensive deck. I don't think anybody else thinks otherwise, but we're not going to spend too much more time looking at it. I've voiced my main opinions, but we still have a total of 6 clans to go over. Alright, so as I said at the start, I basically like everything in this set equally. I think everything is super cool and I'm excited to try it. I think the one clan maybe I'm not as excited for is actually Shadow Paladin, so we're going to start with that. First card being Dragabisluard. Has an act once per turn, Soul Blast 1 and Persona Flip, choose one of your rearguards and retire it. Search your deck for up to 2 grade 1 cards, call them to separate rearguard circles and shuffle your deck. If you call 2 units with the ritual ability, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. Pretty nice way of essentially, for not much cost at all, just filter through your deck, get yourself some grade 1s, you know, also field control your opponent, you get to select as well, and then GB3 Ritual X, all of your front row units get plus 10k for every 4 grade 1 cards in your drop zone. This is really big because you can easily get like 20k buff, 30k buff. Okay, that one's a bit more tough, but the 20k buff is definitely realistically achievable, I think. Maybe not on first stride, but also you won't really be using GB3 on first stride either, let's be real. But this is still a very good card. I also dig the art a lot, and honestly, like, there's not too much to talk about because it's just good. Like, it just does a lot of things, it filters through the deck, it gives a lot of power to your front row, and overall just does a lot for the deck. So, next card we have is Dragfalluard, so this is the new grade 3. Ritual X, you may pay counterblast 4 and choose a normal unit from your drop zone and put it in the bottom of your deck. This cost is reduced by counterblast 1 for each grade 1 card in your drop zone as the cost for Stride and Ultimate Stride. So you basically counterblast 4 if you have 0 grade 1s, counterblast 3 if you have 1, counterblast 2 if you have 2, counterblast 1 if you have 3, and counterblast 0 if you have 4 and above grade 1s in your drop zone. Works both for Stride and Ultimate Stride, meaning that you essentially don't pay anything to Stride and you just have to bot deck a normal unit every single time. Very nice and gives you a lot of flexibility. I know a lot of people are running this at 4 and no other grade 3s as well. Second skill is, however, when you do Stride, you counterblast 1. If you do search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or lower card, call it to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. If that unit has the ritual ability, choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as that unit and retire it. So same unit as the one that, same column as the unit that was called. So if you go into Dragabyss, you basically get 2 retires that turn, which is really nice. I feel like Luard didn't have as many retires as I would have expected, like back in the day. So now seeing it get a lot of these retires is actually pretty cool. Next is a new really good grade 2, which is Slap-Tail Dragon. This guy has Ritual 3. When your other grade 1 unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with a ritual ability, that placed unit and this unit get plus 3k until the end of the turn. So this is not once per turn, meaning it's going to go up every single time. This will become a big beat stick and everything else is going to get buffed as well. So this is really good. It's also not on GB1 and only Ritual 3, which is surprisingly easy to fulfill these days because of a lot of the new cards that we're going to go over later on. Then he has a deck and drop zone skill. If you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Luard in its card name, this card gets grade -1. So that will also add up to your ritual counts because it does count in the drop zone, and you can also call it out from the deck with the skills that search for grade 1s. So overall, this card is just a jack of all trades. He can do basically everything, and he's definitely a staple. Next is the new heal, Emancipating Revenger Alil. So this is the heal for Shadow Paladin, and she does have Revenger in the name, and she's really cute, so overall she hits every single basis. Next is the new G-Guard, Dark Dragon, Dark Veil Dragon. That's a lot of D's in one name, Jesus Christ. And it's like Dark Dragon, Dark. It's like Dark Dragon Dragon. God, just looking at this name hurts. Anyway, when you guard with it, Soul Blast 1. If you do, he gets plus 5k until the end of that battle for every 2 grade 1 cards in your drop zone. So it's gonna be pretty easy to fulfill, especially if you use this later on. Again, very self-explanatory. A lot of these cards are super easy to understand because it's just like Shadow Paladin's always been kind of easy on paper and easy to play. It's just, you know, a matter of like understanding how to be efficient, and that's about it. So next card we have is Drag Fencer Dagda. And what I've heard is apparently in the lore, like Dagda is either Luard's father or brother or cousin or like something related in terms of like family, but I don't remember exactly how, but still like really cool. Anyway, GB1 Ritual 5. When he attacks a Vanguard, if you have Vanguard with Luard in his card name, you can counterblast 1 and retire a grade 1 or less rearguard. If you do search your deck for up to 2 grade 1 cards, call them separate rearguard circles and shuffle your deck. Really cool because this converts 1 unit into 2, which is like hello, and don't forget that it calls them in standing, so they will be giving you extra attacks too, which is like perfect. This card is really good. So definitely very nice. The cost isn't very tight either, so I think it's a very good card. Next we have Dragon Lancer Dialad. This is a better Swordbreaker, has Ritual 1 when placed on rearguard circle from your deck. If you have Vanguard with a Ritual ability, Soul Blast 1 and draw a card. So it's a Swordbreaker, but Ritual 1, and you have to have a Vanguard with a Ritual ability, and has to be called from deck just like Swordbreaker, but has 7k power, which is really important. So makes good numbers and works the same way as Swordbreaker, so obviously a good card. Moving into the commons, we have Subjugate Dragon, which is a new grade 3, Ritual 1 when ridden or called. If you have a Vanguard with a Ritual ability, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or less card with a Ritual ability, call to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. It's a free call, but honestly it's not really worth running because then it gets really clunky in grade 3 space, and I really don't think it's worth it. Next is Drag Wizard Gaunan. When you call it from hand, specifically from hand, you counterblast 1 and discard a grade 1 card with a Ritual ability. If you do, draw 2 cards. Basically in a main, but has to be called from hand, and you have to discard a grade 1 ritual card, so it's like very specific, but it does fuel your ritual really early. This fuels ritual on turn 2, don't forget that, it's really important, and it obviously builds up cards in your hand, so it's a jack of all trades. It's got 9k power, it doesn't punish you like in the main, so it's definitely really nice. Next is Drag Wizard Yucharba. Ritual 3, during the battle this unit boosted, this unit gets plus 3k, nothing too flashy there unfortunately, and then once per turn, GB1, when your other rearguard with a ritual ability is retired for the effect or cost of your card, you may put that retired card into your soul. So basically once per turn you'll get an extra soul. Like, I like these effects, but I think she's like a 1 or 2 of. I'm trying to remember if I've seen her that much in the topping Luard lists, but I feel like her main function is that second effect. Like, I like the plus 3k because like it's a 10k boost. Like, she can make nice columns on your Drag Abyss turns, I guess, but that's about all I see from her, apart from that extra soul. Then the next card we have is Drag Wizard Famnach. She has a hand ability, you discard her, and choose one of your rearguards with a ritual ability and rest it, and you draw a card. Again, not on GB1, and she's a grade 1, meaning she will be fueling your ritual very early. Then GB2 Ritual 5, if you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Luard in its card name, this unit gets plus 7k and resist, which is again super big, because having resist in a deck like this is also very nice, so that like she'll be a 14k on her own with Drag Abyss buffs. She's a 24 with resist, that's really nice. Give her 3k from like basically anything, and she's going to be hitting for magic numbers with resist, meaning that's just a really nice thing to have for a grade 1 as well. Next we have Drag Raptor Malthe. Ritual 1, when it attacks, if you have Vanguard with the ritual ability, it gets plus 4k until the end of that battle. So 11k attacker, nothing much more than that, but again, not GB1 restricted, so that's the nice part of it. Finally, the last new card is a new starter, Vikro. Has Ritual 3, when this unit is retired from rearguard circle for the effect or cost of your card with a ritual ability, you can put him into your soul. If you do, countercharge 1. I think this is a really good starter for Ritual. I think a lot of Luard players wanted something like this, because a lot of the starters that they've had to play with so far weren't that great, but this is actually really nice because it countercharges for free, and it provides you a soul as well. Some people would say that in the current meta, well actually, leading up to the G-BT14 meta, I would say like, oh, it's a little bit worrying, but I think right now it's actually quite viable again, so overall quite good. Final card is the reprint of Morfessa, sadly no new art, but still a very nice reprint. And that concludes this segment on Shadow Paladin. I think overall they got a lot of nice support, and so looking quite good, honestly. Like, Luard has already been topping quite a lot. Not sure if it's because people are just playing around with the new stuff, or because Chaos is actually dropping in popularity. The one thing that Shadow Paladin didn't get, or anything in this set actually didn't get, is unlockers, which is quite surprising actually, and especially like a clan like Shadow Paladin that is super rearguard reliant. You would have expected it to get at least one unlocker, but alas, we didn't get anything. So, moving along. Moving along, we're gonna go over the Nubatama support. This doesn't mean I don't like the new support, it's just like, it's so hard to pick what to go over next. I was just like, I only really like 4 or 5 of these cards, so I guess I can go over it next, because there's some really like fillerish commons in here, so I guess it's better to get it out of the way first. So, but apart from that, we're gonna go over one of the biggest meta-changing cards in the set, which is Evil Eye Vidya Emperor Shiranui Rinne. Oh my god, he's the Emperor of a Vidya game. So, Dominate, act once per turn, Counterblast 1 and Persona Flip. Your opponent chooses 2 cards from their hand, calls them to separate rearguard circles, and they get plus 5k until end of turn. Dominate them and attack your opponent's Vanguard one at a time. Your opponent cannot activate the auto abilities of cards called due to this effect until end of turn. And then GB3, all dominated units get plus 10k plus 1 crit. So that first skill to begin with is already really big because you're basically forcing your opponent to lose not just 2 cards in hand, but more, because they're losing 2 cards in hand. Even if they call a trigger, you can buff it up, and they've lost a 10k from calling a trigger, and they're also going to lose some cards from guarding against their own unit that they were just forced to call. So this is a super insanely good card because it just forces your opponent to lose so much. Like, you can actually end games on first try because of this guy, because like if your opponent decided to like rush you for whatever reason, then it's just like, what? Like, it's so wild. It's such a crazy card. And then as soon as like you hit second stride, this thing is already like giving those dominated units a crit too, so it's like good luck surviving, honestly. It's also got 10k buffs, so it's 15k buff total. He also has nipple arm, so like I don't even know what to say, seriously. Like, this guy is just insane. Like, it's so hard to like find anything bad to say about him, because like they just printed a really insane card for Nubatama, and like it turned Shiranui from like, yeah, it's a pretty cool new thing, you know, the last support wasn't all that good, to basically tier 0. So really good new stride. But he does have a new grade 3 companion, which is Blazing Demonic Stealth Dragon Shiranui Zanki. He has Dominates. During your turn, when this unit was ridden or when your G unit strides, choose up to one of any player's rearguards and he gets plus 2k until end of turn. If that is your opponent's rearguard, stand it and dominate it and attack your opponent's other unit, and then you may use its abilities if you pay the cost, so that's the regular dominate condition. And second effect is, at the beginning of your ride phase, you may Soul Blast 1. If you do draw a card and all fighters choose a card from their hands, call them to rearguard circles, and your opponent cannot activate the auto abilities of cards called due to this effect until end of turn. So this is really good because you're going to be calling units anyway, and like, it's at the beginning of your ride phase, so even if you ride, what I really like about this card is that like you can ride up to grade 3 and both skills will go off. Not immediately, first skill will go off immediately, but the second skill will go off the next turn before you even stride, so that's really cool. And I think it's the right way to be printing new cards as well. So, super good card because it essentially makes your opponent lose 3 cards from their hand at the beginning of your own turn, basically. And that's just so nice. So, you're punishing them quite a lot, and Zanki and Rinne are doing so much to do that. Next is the heal, Quesera Basara. So this is just the generic heal for Nubatama, and then there's new G-Guard in Rikudo Stealth Dragon Gando Kurakan. When you guard with him, if the number of cards in your opponent's hand is 3 or more until the end of the battle, he gets plus 5k shield, and if it's 6 or more, then he gets another 10k shield, so just a 30k shield on its own for no cost whatsoever. Good card, very easy to understand. I don't think I need to say too much about this. Next is a card I really like the art of, which is Stealth Rogue of Liquidation Sadatsugu. So, when he attacks a Vanguard, if you have Vanguard with Shiranui in his card name, he gets 2k until the end of that battle, so 11k attacker, but only for that battle. And then at the end of the battle, your other rearguard attack the Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 on GB1. If you do retire the unit that attacked, draw a card, and this unit loses this ability until end of turn. Reason why they put it like that instead of once per turn is because with once per turn, as soon as that unit would attack, as any unit that isn't him would attack a Vanguard, you'd have to activate it or you lose that ability. So now you can choose when you want to, just to target a specific rearguard, so you don't have to just retire something random that, you know, your opponent is baiting you with or whatever. So overall, really nice card. I think he's basically a staple in the new Shiranui deck, and he's one of the other cards that I really like. Next is the card that I've seen some people tech, which is Spirit Calling Stealth Master Suzu. GB1, when the attack of a dominated unit hits during your turn, this unit gets plus 10k until the end of turn. So she's nice because that's not once per turn, so every time a dominated unit hits, that's going to be a 10k buff on her. So doesn't have to hit the Vanguard every time either, can be hitting rearguards too, so I think that's what makes her very strong. I know some people are still playing the old grade 3 common, I forget his name every time, but you know which one I mean, but I'm not sure. I think I would play her, but I also understand why the other one is being played. So it's hard to really debate, I think, because both of them are quite good, but also she has waifu factor, so I think she's slightly got that sort of advantage. Next is Stealth Dragon Enbai, GB1. When other dominated units attack during your turn, this unit gets plus 5 kills on that turn. So this is just, you know, power stacking. So just like the grade 3 went over just now, except it doesn't have to hit, so just when a dominated unit attacks. So you can build up some pretty crazy power. We also have a grade 1 that does the same, which is Stealth Rogue of Vista Ayagiri. So literally the exact same effect. Next is basically a bit of an after image card, which is Stealth Dragon Bakuren. When you call it from hand, if your opponent has no cards in their bind zone, your opponent chooses one card from their hand and binds it face down, and at the end of that turn, your opponent puts that card into their hands. So basically just after image. It's nothing much more than that, but it's got 8k power, so it's not that solid. Next is Stealth Dragon Ozai. When other dominated units attack a Vanguard during your turn, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, that unit gets plus 3k until end of that battle. And if you have grade 4 Vanguard, this unit gets plus 3k until end of turn. So pretty nice because you can buff him up pretty solidly, but it costs Soul Blast 1 every single time, which I think is a little bit heavy in my opinion. So overall an okay card, but not as good as the next card, which is Stealth Beast Mistfrog. Now he only has 6k power base, but he has a GB1. When other dominated units attack during your turn, you can put him into your soul. If you do, draw a card, and that unit gets plus 6k until end of that battle. So gets you extra cards in hand, which is really big, and can buff up anything by 6k. The attack, you know, you dominate their starter, 11k swing. You dominate a 10k vanilla, 16k swing. So this kind of effect is really good because that plus 6k can turn into a lot of magic numbers. The only thing it can't really turn into a magic number is like a 4k trigger or like a Laurel or something of that style, but still you can buff it up with other things like your starter and then still be able to hit nice numbers. So really good card, definitely a staple in Dominate right now. We'll see if that ever changes. Next is the new starter, which is Stealth Dragon Burai. It's a Forerunner, and when your Vanguard with a Dominate ability is placed on Vanguard Circle, you can put him into your soul. If you do, draw a card and choose a card from your opponent's drop zone, and opponent calls that card to Vanguard Circle, and at the end of that turn, retire that unit. So this is nice because it doesn't have to be just when you ride a grade 3, it can be when you stride a Dominate unit as well. So it's really nice that it gives you that ability to choose, and it gets you basically just an extra soul, extra card in hand, as well as an extra attack if you dominate that unit. So overall, a very good starter that I've seen most Dominate players running these days. Next is Stealth Fiend Kageusa. You bind her face down from your rearguard circle, choose up to 2 of any fighter's rearguards, and they get plus 2 cancel end of turn. So because it's an act, you can basically just do it in your main phase before you go into the dominated attacks. And so it's nice because that plus 2k, like I said, with Mist Frog, you're going to be hitting like, you can, even if you hit like just 10k with a 4k unit, you can buff them up by 2k with this girl, and thus you're hitting magic numbers. And then the final card for Nubatama is the reprint of Tsukumura Kan, which used to be a GR. So this is a really big reprint. This put this guy's price down a lot, so really nice reprint. I think he's still being run at like 1, so it's overall pretty good. So Shiranu, like I said, I think is one of the best decks to come out of this set, just because Rine and Zanki do so much for the deck, and they're just like, they're so dominating, pun intended. But you can close out games on first stride pretty easily, honestly, and then if not, then second stride will also work. But it's just such a good pair of cards, and like everything else is just a bonus on top of that, honestly. So Dominate looking very good after this set, but we will be moving on to some other clans for now. Next up is yet another clan that I could easily put at the first spot, which is going to be Gear Chronicle, with the big batch of support for Zodiac Time Beasts. The first of which is going to be one of our 2 GRs, which is Chrono Visor Heritage. Anyway, this skinny-legged dragon has the very interesting skill, which basically takes us back to my initial like blow up of the channel with how to play Gear Chronicle, when I was joking around with, you know, the whole gaining an extra turn thing. So this time we're actually gaining an extra turn without relying on luck. So when this unit is put into your G zone from Vanguard Circle, you can choose 4 other Zodiac Time Beasts that are face up from your G zone and turn them face down. If you do, you get an additional turn. Skip the right phase of that additional turn, and at the beginning of the main phase, stride this card on your Vanguard Circle. So this can actually be looped. You can essentially, if you have 8 other face-up ZTBs in your G-Zone, then you can use the skill twice to give yourself 2 extra turns. You obviously skip the right phase, and you do have to go into him, so you cannot like randomly go into a different stride to, you know, just do other things. So this card is overall quite simple. His condition is also not very hard to achieve. You essentially stride once, G-Guard twice, and bam. That's pretty much it, and so I think he's overall quite easy to achieve. and just a good card, and I love his design too. I think it's just so good. So this is basically the easiest way to get an extra turn, and it's going to be just, you're going to be seeing it. ZTB is going to be pretty good after this set. Next we have Chronojet Dragon Z wearing that expensive PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds scarf thing. But anyway, again, I love this guy's aesthetic. I really like the white on, like the white and gold and red. It just mixes so well. So I guess it's more silver actually. But anyway, yes, first skill is you may pay, choose a grade 3 Zodiac Time Beast when it drops on and bind it face up as the cost for stride. So basically striding for free, which a lot of clans are getting, so it's definitely not a bad thing. And second skill is when your unit strides, you can Soul Blast 1 if you do choose up to one of any player's rear guards and put it on the bottom of their deck. If you put one card, search your deck for up to one Zodiac Time Beast with grade +1 on the card put due to this effect, call it to rear guard circle and shuffle your deck. So if you put one card of your own, then you basically get a time leap, but if you put your opponent's card, then you're just, making them lose a card. So really good card, the new boss grade 3 for ZTBs and, just the whole clan in general, and so it's definitely very good and is going to bring ZTBs back into the meta as well. Next we have the new heal trigger, which does have Zodiac Time Beast as well, so it's definitely just perfect. And then we have the Zodiac Time Beast G-Guard, which is Ilishu. So when you guard with her, if the number of cards in your bind zone is 1 or more, you Soul Blast 1 if you do until end of that battle, she gets plus 5k shield, and if it's 5 or more, then she gets plus another 15k shield. So very nice, 35k shield. As always, Gear Chronicle has to have just a little bit more shield than everybody else, because it wouldn't be a Gear Chronicle if it wasn't. Next we have Pulsar Metal Party Dragon, one of the new really good cards for Zodiac Time Beast once again. He has Vanguard and Rearguard skills. This unit cannot attack if the number of cards in your bind zone is 0. And then GB1, at the end of the battle this unit boosted, you may count +1 and bind him face up. If you do, call up to one face up grade 3 and grade 1 Zodiac Time Beast from your bind zone to separate rearguard circles, which essentially gets you an extra attack. The grade 3 obviously attacking on its own, the grade 1 might be pairing up with something else, but those are free attacks, and that makes this card really good. The other really good card is Pulsar Mary Block Dragon. He has deck and drop zone skills. If your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets grade +2, so it's a grade 3. And then GB1, when this unit boosts, you may have this unit get +2 cancel in the battle for each of your Zodiac Time Beasts, and if you do, bind this unit face up at the end of that battle. It's slightly like a Manish, except on boost, so you obviously can't use it if you're going to be attacking with it, but it's still a very good card because it just makes good columns, makes good numbers, and also counts as a grade 3 in the deck, so overall a very solid grade 1. Next is a reprint of the ZTB Stride Fodder, nothing too special here. Then a new crit, Pulsar Bombard Hog. This is also good, act, bind him face up to countercharge 1, not on GB1 so you can do it at any point you want, which makes him again a very good crit that you're going to be playing for sure. Next is a new grade 3 common that I've seen some ZTB topping decks run at a 1, which is Pulsar Proceed Sheep. Act, count +1 and bind him face up. You can draw a card and choose a card from your drop zone and bind him face up, so accelerating your bind zone pretty fast. You also get to select anything in your bind zone, so that way you can pair it up with things like Metal Party and stuff like that, which makes this very nice. Next is Pulsar Tamer EGG, which is once per turn GB1 when your other Zodiac Time Beast is placed on rearguard circle other than from your hand, this unit gets +10 cancel on its turn. So 19k attacker, but gonna be easy to form 26k columns, and so only once per turn, but I think it'd be a bit OP if it wasn't. Then there's Pulsar Crash Monkey. Bind Zone, act, Soul Blast 1, call him to rearguard circles. So if you bound him for an effect, you can call him back, only 8k power though. And then when this card is put into your bind zone face up, you can count +1 on GB1 to draw a card. I don't think those skills pay off his 8k base. I don't, like maybe in some decks like Chronofang you'd see this, but even then I don't think I would go for it. Next we have Pulsar Tamer Zambia. Continuous, during your turn this unit gets +1k for each face up Zodiac Time Beast in your bind zone, so you can actually buff her up quite a bit with some of the new skills, but I'm not sure if you can buff her up enough to make her justified to run. Next we have Pulsar Spring Rabbit. GB1, when this card is cold, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose one of your other Zodiac Time Beasts on your rearguard circle, bind it face up. If you do, draw a card and Soul Charge 1. Again, accelerates your just binds very fast, so it doesn't have to be just called from hand, so even if you call it from skills you can use the effect, so it's overall quite good, gets an extra card, but the 6k power is a little bit low. However, the next card that does not disappoint whatsoever is Chrono Dran Z. This is the new starter, again running with that silver aesthetic. When your grade 2 or greater Zodiac Time Beast is placed on Vanguard Circle, you can bind him face up. If you do, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to one grade 3 or grade 1 card from among them, put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. So potentially it fixes your ride, because if you didn't start with a grade 3, then you just ride up to grade 2 and then look at the top 5 and hey, maybe you'll get something. And then as a bind zone GB1, you choose a card from your hand and discard it and then put him into your hand. So you can use that effect every single turn, which makes it a really, really good card in just accelerating the cards in your hand, because it's not just when you ride something, it's also when you stride a Zodiac Time Beast. So just being able to use this every turn, or like keeping him for guarding, is super good. And finally, there's a reprint of Hypnosis Sheep, which is still a pretty important trigger for Zodiac Time Beasts. So that's it for the Gear Chronicle part. Like I said, ZTBs are coming back pretty strong into the meta thanks to a lot of this new stuff, like the new Grade 3 Chrono Jet, the Metal Party, the Chronodron Z, like the new crit trigger, the G-Guard. There's a lot of reasons why the deck is really good now. It can also use Dust pretty well too, so I think it's just a solid deck as a whole, and just honestly, I'm not too surprised that this is going to be topping for some time. Moving on to one of the biggest batches of support is going to be Genesis, which will be split up by Revelation and Regalia. We're going to go over the Revelation stuff first because there's not that much in terms of like main cards, just a lot of stuff that support different decks. First of which is the new Revelation Stride, which is Goddess of Mercy Inanna. Act once per turn, Counterblast 1 and Persona Flip. Soul Charge 3, your opponent chooses one of their rearguards for each card with the Revelation ability Soul Charged and retires them. So you retire up to 3. It is RNG based, but you can build your deck around it. But you know, still you'll be running some cards, obviously like heal triggers that won't have Revelation, but you're looking at a solid like 1 or 2 usually per skill use. But our GB3 actually makes her quite useful, which is all of your rear guards get plus 2k for each card in your soul with a Revelation ability. So this isn't just front row like with a lot of strides these days, this is the whole field, so this actually makes her very useful. So I think that second skill is what you want to be focusing on, and that first skill is just like the icing on top. So like, if you get the retires, nice, that gave you retire for like, you know, unexpectedly, but apart from that, the power buff is definitely a very solid thing to have. We're also going to hit some of the generic cards, like the heal, which is a Regalia, but you know, it is technically generic. And then there's the G-Guard, which is also Regalia, but again is also generic. So her skill is when you guard with her, choose up to 4 cards from your drop zone with different grades and put them into your soul. If you put 2 or more cards until the end of that battle, this unit gets plus 5k shield, but if you put 4 cards, it gets plus 10k shield. So if you put a grade 0, 1, 2, 3, then you get the full value, but if it's only 2 different grades, then only 5k shield. Still a good card though. Next is Goddess of Karmic Wind Ningal, and like I haven't watched or read or played Berserk. I've like have very slight exposure to Berserk, but look, this looks very much like the face and the hair looks very much like the villain. I'm really bad at Berserk lore, so I'm sorry that I can't you know, talk about this more. But just the face and the hair really remind me of him. But anyway, he has Revelation and continuous Vanguard and rearguard circles. If no card was put into your soul during this turn due to card effect, this unit cannot attack a Vanguard. So this is a 10k grade 2 for Genesis, so I guess every clan is getting them, so we might as well give it to Genesis. Next is Regalia of Hypocenter Kukurihime. Reason I put this on generic is because the skill doesn't require anything Regalia based. So you act, put into the soul. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, you choose one of your units and it gets plus 3k until the end of that turn. And if you have a face-up card in your G-Zone, you draw a card. It's kind of like Die Draft in Dimension Police, but it is a crit, which actually makes it very, very good. Next we have Goddess of the Abyss Ereshkigal. So the Fate memes are finally here. We have both Ishtar and Ereshkigal in the same deck. So she has Revelation and act once per turn, GB1 Soul Blast 3. Choose up to 2 of your units and stand them, and if you stood this unit, put 1 card from the bottom of your deck into your hand. I've seen a lot of Amaruda decks running her, just because it's actually very cool that you can take cards from the bottom of the deck only once per turn, but still it's a very interesting way to take, you know, gain cards in your hand. So I actually like her quite a lot. I think the design is quite nice and a good backup for the Amaruda deck. Next is Deemed Angel, which is actually a very important grade 1 for the Amaruda Gize deck. Yes, that is a thing. So Revelation, and when this unit rests, it's the effect of the Revelation ability of your other unit. If you have Vanguard with a Revelation ability, you can counterblast 1. If you do, draw a card. Now, this is a bit counterblast heavy, so you won't use it every turn, but every now and again, this is actually really nice because it's just extra cards in hand, and it's very easy to achieve. So I think this is a good card for the Revelation, well, for the Amaruda Gize deck. So overall, I think it's quite nice. Next is Regalia of Brewing Bennu. So this is a Regalia, but again, generic effect. When this unit is placed on Vanguard or rearguard circle from hand, look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, put 1 card from among them into your soul, and the other one into the drop zone. So not that good. It's also a 6k base. I was like low-key thinking of skipping this card just because it's really not that amazing. And then the next Revelation card that we have, which is actually one of the last ones, is Tinkling Angel. So it does have Revelation, and once per turn when this unit rests due to the effect of the Revelation ability of her other unit, if you have a Vanguard with the Revelation ability, stand this unit. So she can't activate it on her own Revelation, but you can activate it with some other, like if you use Revelation for something else, and then like rest her, then you just stand her again. It's not in GB1 either, so that's really cool. And the fact that you have Revelation on a starter is also very nice, because you just like ride turn 1, use Revelation, like even if you keep it for the damage check or for the drive check, like you'll lose the boost if you're going second, but when you're going first, there's like nothing to lose, so it's definitely really nice. And then the last card is Regalia of Thought's Feeling Angel, which is just a stand that you slide into the soul to give one of your units plus 3k, and that's all. So now let's get into the main part of the Genesis support, which is the Regalias. And so here's Tony Taka's new blessing that is Ultimate Regalia of Almighty Minerva. So brand new Minerva for the brand new Regalia support. Both of our skills are very good. Has an act once per turn, Soul Blast 3 Regalias, and Persona Flip. This unit gets plus 10k power and drive plus 1, so right off the bat, even on first try, you get your 4 drive checks for just Soul Blast 3 and Persona Flip, which is really, really nice. And then her other skill is once per turn GB3, Soul Blast 6 Regalias when she attacks and discard a card from your hand. If you do at the end of that battle, stand all of your units with Regalia in their card names, and they get drive -3 until the end of turn. They basically just being her though. Unless this somehow hints at a new mechanic where you can more easily get drive checks on your rear guards, but I don't think that's what they're going for. But if they are, then called it. But anyway, this is also a really good skill. You can also potentially like not use the first skill and like not get the extra drive check, but then still do the restand. That seems very suboptimal, so like why would you lose out on such an important part of the skill by just not soul blasting 3? So the only reason why you would do that is because you don't want to, you know, lose your Minerva count face down. But in the end, like you're going to be using both skills every turn. She's just really good. Attacks with 4 drive checks first time, 1 drive check the second time, but stands your whole field while we're at it. So really, really good. It's like PogChamp Victor in a way, so she's really, really strong. This cost is a bit steep. I know some people are a bit worried, but I wouldn't be that worried myself. Next is Regalia of Wisdom Angelica. So this is the same name, Angelica, but a different one, so you can only play up to 4 copies of either one of Angelicas in the same deck. So first skill is when you ride her, you choose a normal unit with Regalia in its card name from your drop zone and put it into your soul. If you do, draw a card, so that just gives you card advantage really easily. And then she has an on-stride skill. When you use a unit with Regalia and its original card name strides, you can combust 1. If you do look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put 1 of them into your hand, 1 of them into your soul, and the rest into your drop zone. So very nice, because you can just put cards in your drop that you'll soul charge later anyway, and then she gets your card in hand every turn, which is also really cool, and an extra soul charge. So overall does basically everything. Very simple, nothing too crazy either, and so like she just does what the deck wants her to do, and I think that's very good. Next is Regalia Frost Jotun. So this is the Regalia Perfect Guard, which does Perfect Guard any Regalia unit. Then she has a GB1 when she's put into the drop zone from your soul during your turn. If you have Vanguard with Regalia in its card name, you can bind her face up. If you do choose a Jotun from your drop zone, and you maybe return it to your hand. So just a self-returning Perfect Guard, but not the same copy. You have to have another extra one that you return, because you obviously lose one every time for the bind. So good card, you do run this in Regalias without much question. Next is a rare stride for Regalias, which is really good for a rare stride, which is Ultimate Regalia of Crimson Muspel. Once per turn, flip any G unit face up, Soul Blast any number of cards. Choose one of your rear guards for each card Soul Blast, and they get plus 4 until the end of turn. If you Soul Blasted 3 or more cards, draw a card and countercharge 1. This is really nice because it buffs up your rear guards like super good, and then it gets you an extra card in hand and countercharges, and like all you have to do is flip a G unit face up. So like for a first stride, this really isn't bad. And you can also like I could have even put this in generic, because this works generically. It's not restricted skill wise on Regalias, so this could work pretty interestingly with some cards. So I think this is really, really nice, and just overall like for rare stride, it does a lot. Next is Regalia of Abundance Freya. So this is a lot more of a plump Freya than the Macross Freya. But anyway, when you call her, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Regalia in its name, you can counterblast 1. If you do, draw a card and choose up to 2 Regalia cards with different card names from your drop zone, put them into your soul. So this is like with Angelica, you put 2 cards in the drop, so then you can, you know, activate her immediately to put them into your soul. So like the drop zone is basically going to be your soul anyway. Then she has a GB2, when your Vanguard with Regalia in its card name attacks, this unit gets plus 3k until end of turn. So like with Minerva, this will actually give her plus 6, so she'll be 15k base and hitting for magic numbers with basically any booster that isn't 4 or 5k. So overall solid unit. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. She is a staple in the deck as well, so it's overall a good card. Next is Regalia of Benevolent Wind Flap Angel. This is a really good stride fodder. So second skill is just the basic stride fodder skill, so you can even run this in non-Regalia if you want. If you're not running Fenrir, like in Amaruda, this is like fine. And then her first skill is when you call her from hand, you reveal a grade 3 Regalia. If you do, you search your deck for another grade 3 Regalia, reveal it, put it into your hand, and choose a card from your hand and discard it and shuffle your deck. So it's just the stride fodder skill but for Regalias, which is really good. Like, it's good for almost no reason. It's kind of crazy how it's just like the generic stride fodder but for Regalias. It's you know, if only every single subclan got one of these. But anyway, next we have Regalia of Activity Eowyn, I think is how you pronounce it. When you discard her from hand as the cost for stride, if you have a Vanguard with Regalia in its card name, you can put her into your soul. If you do, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets plus 10k until end of turn. Meaning you can overpay for stride and drop like 2 of her to give your Vanguard plus 20k, which is kind of nice. You can hit for big numbers, but sadly it's not when you just discard her, because then you could actually do it you know, with some G guards for, or like for a perfect guard to give your Vanguard plus 10k, but sadly that's not happening. They made sure that doesn't happen. But overall, I think it's actually okay. Like, if you're playing budget, you can play 4 of the new Angelica and then like 3 of this, and it's overall quite good. Next is Regalia of Poem Bragi. When you call her, you have Vanguard with the Regalia name, and you're in GB1, you choose up to 2 cards with Regalia in the card names from your drop zone and put them into your soul. Choose one of your Vanguards, and that unit this unit get plus 3 cancel on a turn for each card, put it with this effect. So again, this is similar to Freya, except that this like almost incorporates both of Freya's skills into one and doesn't cost any counterblast. So again, a very good card. It's kind of interesting that this one's a common, but Freya's was rare. So kind of interesting, but again, this is a really good card that you do want to be playing. Next is Regalia of Ideas Genil. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, you may have this unit get plus 2k until the end of that battle. If you do at the end of that battle, put her into your soul. So quick, you know, soul charging also works on turn 2, doesn't have to be even on grade 3. And then GB1, when this card is put into the drop zone from your soul during your turn, you can choose one of your units with the Regalia in its card name, and it gets plus 3 cancel on a turn. So buffs up your numbers and lets you hit for nice things. And like I said, with things like Freya that hit 15, you can give them 3k to hit 18, which even hits magic numbers against Gallop, which is definitely quite nice. So I think she's kind of like a number fixer, a little bit of early aggression, and her art is nice, so I think she does see some use in Regalia decks. Next is Regalia of Amulets Expel Angel. Act once per turn, choose 3 normal units with Regalia in their card names and different card names from this unit from your drop zone and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. If you have a Vanguard with Regalia in its card name, this unit gets plus 3k until end of turn, and if you have a face-up card with Regalia in its card name in G-Zone, draw a card. So a little bit of recycling so that you don't deck out as fast, which is also good. You are putting a lot of stuff in the drop zone, so if you're not soul charging it, you might as well be just putting it back to the deck. And then on top of that, you also get to just draw an extra card for free, which is pretty cool. You can also use this, the first part of the skill at least, before you actually ride up to grade 3, so it's also quite nice to give you some early aggression if you actually, you know, build up your drop zone that fast. Next is Regalia of Dawn Daylight Angel, which is the new starter. Act Camas 1 and put her into the soul. Reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck. You put up to 1 card from among them into your soul, the rest into your drop zone. If you put a card with Regalia in its card name into your soul, you draw a card. So it's quite nice. Basically look at top 4, it's kind of like top 4, 1 in hand, 1 in soul, 2 in drop, just like Angelica, but in a different way, I guess. Except you also get an extra soul from actually paying her cost, so that makes her quite nice. And this is actually the last card for Regalia. So I think the Genesis support in this set spawned some interesting decks, like the Amaruda Giza build that I quite like in terms of Giza builds, as well as Regalia itself, which is just a super aggressive deck with some very beautiful art that I think a lot of people are playing. It might die down because it is quite hype right now, but I'm not sure how it's gonna, you know, pace out over time, but for now it's looking like a very solid deck. Now that I've eaten some Ego G, check out the video if you haven't, and done my daily roulette in Grand Blue Fantasy, let's go over the Dark Irregulars supports. So again, a lot of really good cards for Dark Irregulars in this set. A lot of them are also quite simple. Some of them are kind of subpar, but we're going to go over everything regardless. So, first card is going to be One Who Hunts Souls Balam. His first skill is an act once per turn, Counterblast 1 and Persona Flip. You choose one of your opponent's rear guards. This unit gets the power of that unit and drive +1. Retire that unit. You may soul charge 2 for each face-up card in your G-Zone. So this is really nice unless your opponent has like a board full of resist, in which case you can't actually target anything, which is actually kind of funny, but I guess you wouldn't go into him in that case. But he's a really good stride just for that first skill already, because he gets an extra drive, he gets some extra power, he also gets you an extra few soul, so it's overall really good. And then his second skill is GB3 Darkness. If the number of cards in your soul is 13 or more, your opponent cannot call grade 1 cards from hand to Guardian Circle. So on top of that, he has a guard restrict, basically being the jack of all trades. Does basically everything except on first stride, won't really be able to do that second part, but even on first stride that's really good because it gives you a bit of field control, gets you a drive check, and gets you some soul, which is basically what you want in a first stride. Next we have one who proceeds towards Daybreak Shower Rot, which is a new grade 3, which basically came out of nowhere honestly, but anyway, when your G-unit strides you may soul charge 2. If you do, choose a card with the Darkness ability from your soul, put it into your hand, and choose up to one card from your hand and put it into your soul. This is really cool because it toolboxes, it gets you an extra soul charge, and it also activates darkness all at once. So it's super nice in that regard, and so I really like that first skill. It's just so toolboxy, you can just, you can do so much with the deck now. And then his second skill is Darkness. At the end of your turn, you can choose one of your grade 1 or grade 8 rearguards and slide it into your soul. If you do, your opponent chooses one of their rearguards, retires it, and if the number of cards in your soul is 8 or more, you countercharge 1. So it basically works like a bit of an engine just sitting there. You're toolboxing through your soul for any card with darkness. You're also putting back cards into your soul that can become toolboxed, and then on top of that you can also retire rearguards, not just with Balam but also with him, and you also countercharge. So both of these cards just combine into the ultimate jack of all trades, and that makes them super duper good. Next is Evil God Bishop Gastil, which was really hyped up and then people got really disappointed, and then they realized they can play 2 of him, and he's actually quite good. So first skill, actually let's go over the second skill first. GB2 Darkness, when this card would be placed on rearguard circle, choose up to 2 grade 2 cards from your soul, put them into the drop zone, and this card gets all of the abilities of those cards. And when this card is placed, abilities will also activate. So really good because you can copy a lot of stuff. Really good, you can even make a build around him where like you copy stuff that's like full of on-call abilities, but even then like you can copy some of the guard restricting cards just to like put guard restrict on him for whatever reason, and that just makes him so nice. Then at the beginning of your right phase, if the number of cards in your soul is 8 or more, you choose one of your grade 3 rearguards with darkness ability and you may return it to your hand, which obviously can include him, which is why you get away with running 2 copies. So like if he survives for that turn, you can just put him back to hand and then call him again and use his abilities again. So he's actually really good. I think people overreacted when he was first released. I think he's actually quite nice. Next is the new Perfect Guard for Darkness, which can guard for only Darkness ability units, and then has the Drop Zone GB2 Darkness ability. You counterblast 1 and choose one of your other Craciels from your Drop Zone or Soul and bind it face up, and then you return this card to hand. So it doesn't have to be returned from the Drop Zone, but you can bind from either Drop Zone or Soul, but if you bind from Drop Zone, it has to be a different unit. So do keep that in mind because otherwise it's not going to work out. She looks like Katarina from League of Legends, but I think any of you that play League of Legends would have already realized that. The next one also kind of looks like it, but nowhere near as much, which is the Mon's follower Abysm Lust, which is the heal trigger. Does have a Mon in the name, so that's quite nice. I guess that's how they decided to capitalize on the archetype. And then we have the rare stride, which is Darkness Unleashed Freiheit. Darkness, when he attacks, you may soul charge 2. If you do choose one of your units for every 4 cards in your soul, then they get plus 5k until end of turn. If the number of cards in your soul is 13 or more, you choose up to 4 cards from your soul with different grades, return them to your deck and shuffle it, and this unit gets plus 5k for each card returned. Kind of interesting, I guess for like a budget stride he'd be quite good. I mean, he's good overall, but just like in a more budget deck, he's actually quite nice. Because that first part is quite easy to hit. The second one with 13 or more, you won't really be hitting on like first stride or anything. But it's still nice because it can give you a little bit of like a panic button refresh, I guess you can say. And he gets some extra power out of it. So I guess it's just like a panic button, if anything. But I don't think he would be run that much. Next is Accumulated Attachment Drui Nasu, which is the G-Guard. If the number of cards in your soul is 8 or more, she gets plus 10k shield to begin with, and then when she's guarded with, you choose one of your grade 1 or greater rearguards with a darkness ability and slide it into your soul if you do draw a card. So again, you can do it on your opponent's turn, slide something in, and then with Char's skill you can just get that card back into hand at the beginning of your next turn. Next is a new staple, which is Succubus of Jealousy. When you call her, if you have a Vanguard with the Darkness ability, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck. If you do, put up to 2 grade 1 or greater cards with Darkness ability from among them into your soul and shuffle your deck. So this is one of the targets that you can copy with Gastil, and just overall a nice way to just search out a bunch of stuff, because you can also get up to 2 cards for free. Then as Darkness, GB1, this unit gets plus 2k power. So just plus 2k power, there's no condition, it's just plus 2k power as long as you've got Darkness. Then there's a reprint of the Stride Fodder with a insanely sexy art. And then we have a new grade 3 common, which is Forschung Vampir. He has Vanguard, Rearguard, and Guardian Circle, GB1 Darkness. If the number of cards in your soul is 4 or more, he gets plus 2k power, plus 5k shield and intercept. And if your Vanguard has a Darkness ability and number of your cards in your soul is 8 or more, he gets another 5k shield. So overall, you won't really use him. I don't think you have the space for this guy. It's an interesting way to approach it, but with a 10k base, it's really not looking that good, and it doesn't really have much use apart from being defensive. Next is an actual really good common that is Baleful Repressor. GB2 Darkness, when he attacks, the number of cards in your soul is 8 or more. Until the end of that battle, he gets plus 10k power, and your opponent cannot call grade 0 cards from hand to Guardian Circle. So like on a Dust turn, you're already restricting them to grade 1 and grade 0, so this restricts them to just grade 1, which is actually pretty ridiculous. So very nice, super good card, and played basically as a 3 or 4 of in every Darkness deck. Next is Gamboling Psycho Killer, so she's not gambling or bowling, she's gamboling. Darkness, she gets plus 3k power, so 11k, but again on Darkness. And then GB1, when her attack hits a Vanguard, you can counterblast a Darkness card. If you do draw a card in Soul Charge 1. Honestly, this is pretty bad. I don't think you'd play this. You have a lot better grade 2s to be playing than an 8k base on hit. So, moving on, we have Were-Tiger Plunderer. Continuous Darkness during your turn. If you have Vanguard with Charrot in this card, and if you gets plus 1k for each card in your soul. This is actually kind of good because this actually helps you hit good numbers. So I wouldn't play this like a 4 of or anything, but like as a 2 of I think it's alright, because again, you're toolboxing so hard that like throw the soul charging that you do, I think you'll hit this quite consistently, even as a 2 of. So I think it's actually fairly nice, so I would personally play this. Then we have Revolting Bolt. He has Darkness GB1 Resist, which is nice, and then when he's put into your soul due to the effect of a card during your turn, if you have Vanguard with a Darkness ability, you choose one of your units and it gets plus 4k until end of turn. So the resist part is what mainly sells me on him, but I'm not too sure if you care about the resist in this deck that much. But regardless, you know, it's an interesting grade 1, but I'm not sure if I would play that either. Next is White Fang Wielder. Act Darkness, retire him. If the number of cards in your soul is 20 or more, you choose one card with the Darkness ability from your soul for each different grade, return them to your deck, and shuffle it. If you returned all 4 cards, you choose up to 5 of your units and they get plus 6k until end of turn. This guy is kind of interesting. Like, I don't think it's very competitive and like nowhere near like consistent, but maybe it's like a one of that like you can like randomly soul charge into when you're at like really low cards in deck, just to like return 4 cards and get the plus 6 global buff. It's kind of nice, but again, like I think it's very niche use. It's just something you could do to like throw your opponent off, but I personally don't think I'd be too into it. Next is Waxdom Vampire, who kind of looks like Gao, like the main buddy fight character, but he's a new starter for Darkness, and he has GB1 Darkness. Act, counterblast 1, put him into your soul, and choose one of your other rearguards and retire it. You choose up to 2 grade 1 or greater cards with the Darkness ability from your soul and put them into your hand, which further accelerates your toolboxing, which is what you want to be doing in this deck apparently. Next, there's Spirit Inviter, which is a generic draw that you slide into soul to give something 3k, and then the last card, which is the new stand, which is Verfriede Informant, which is Act GB1 Darkness, put him into your soul. If you have a grade 4 Vanguard, draw a card and give one of your rear guards plus 3k, so you can't give it to your Vanguard to hit magic numbers, but still quite okay, but I think you have better stands to be running. Anyway, that is it for the Dark Irregulars part. Darkness, well, Charrot is super good after this set, one of the best in my opinion, because it does so much with Balam that it's actually incredible, and it toolboxes for basically everything. You still have a lot of the good old cards, and so overall I think this deck is just going to keep on topping after this. It was already topping, but now it's going to be even better. So we'll see what everybody's favorite Malaysian demon Hongwai is going to bring to the meta with this deck as well, but there are a lot of really good Dark Irregulars players all over the world, so it's going to be interesting to see how the deck performs in the current meta. And the last and final clan of this fairly long set breakdown. Honestly, this could have been shorter if there weren't so many clans in this set and so many other cards outside of those clans, but this is going to be Royal Paladin, which is basically only Brave support. So I really like the new Alt Mile deck. I think it's super potent. The new support I got is really cool. I'd like to play it myself, but I really can't afford to be building new decks, especially as we're entering a new mechanic soon. So the first card we're going to have is the new GR, which is Immortal Holy Sword Fides. He has an act once per turn, counterblast 1 and flip any unit face up. Until end of turn, this unit gets the skill that if your opponent has only one guardian, the attacks of your units with the brave ability will hit regardless of power. So that's a really big skill because it means your opponent has to guard with an extra unit every single time, which will thin their hand very greatly. And that ability isn't restricted to Brave, so if you have more than 5 cards when using this, when activating this ability, it's actually fine because, that's just cool. Like, you can activate it, and you can activate it even if you're on low cards in hand or a high amount of cards in hand. It doesn't really matter. It's just, something I wanted to point out. But second attack does have Brave. GB4, not 3 but 4 Brave. When this unit attacks, if you have a hard card with Alt Mile in its card name, search your deck for up to 3 cards, call them separate rearguard circles, and shuffle your deck. So 0 cost, call 3. That is really big. It's even bigger than Brave Lancer, which was counterblast 1, call 3, and then maybe discard. This is just like call 3. That's it. Here's your field. Here's your 2 extra attacks, if not more. This card is so good and it does so much. It's a GR, but it's super deserving of that GR spot. Next is Higher Deity Knight Alt Mile, which is the new grade 3 Alt Mile. I really like his art, and the coloring on him is like super sexy. So Abs Mile, first skill is once per turn when you ride him or stride, Soul Blast a Brave unit. If you do search your deck for up to 1 card with a Brave ability not named this Alt Mile, call it to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. I really like that this works on ride, because that actually, motivates you to ride up to 3, and, even if you don't get the first stride, you get some really good aggression out of it, so I think it's super nice, and there's more cards in this set that add to that, which I think is a really nice turn for the game. And then second skill is Vanguard and Rearguard Circles, GB2 Brave. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you have Vanguard with a Brave ability, this unit gets plus 5k and plus 1 crit until the end of that battle. Oh my god, the fact that you have a rearguard crit is just like, hello, Dimax, just casually swings with 16k and the crit just out of nowhere. This is so nice. You can search it off anything but his own skill, so that means you can actually go through several of these per turn if you want to, because you're going for kill turns all the time anyway. As long as your opponent gives you counterblast, you can do so much, so it's super potent, and I really like this guy. Next is Peerless Knight Livaro. So his first skill is if you don't have a Vanguard with a Brave ability, this unit can't attack because he is a 10k. But when he does attack on Brave, if you have a Vanguard with an Alt Mile name, you can counterblast 1. If you do search your deck for up to 1 grade 2 card with a Brave ability not named Livaro, call it to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So that's really big because, again, like I said, even if you're going first, you can ride up to Alt Mile, call out a Livaro, and then when Livaro attacks, he calls out something else, and therefore you just got 2 units just by not even striding, which you wouldn't have expected before. So I think it's really nice. This Livaro is like a staple. The new Alt Mile is also really good. So overall, they're both really good cards. Next is the new heal, which is honestly disappointing because it's not, it doesn't have any archetype. It's not a Jewel Knight. How hard was it to just put Jewel Knight Remedy Angel or something, or Jewel Knight Angel of Remedy or something? Come on, it would have been easier. It would have made me a little bit happier. But oh well, alas, it didn't amount to much. Next, we have a new G-Guard in Holy Dragon Defend Whole Dragon. He has Brave. When this unit is placed on Guardian Circle during the battle, your opponent's Vanguard attacked. Choose one of your units with a Brave ability and it cannot be hit until the end of that battle. So this can guard any of your Brave units. I said rear guards in my box opening, but this can also guard your Vanguard, because you have Brave on the Vanguard. And so that's really cool because it's basically a perfect guard that is a G-Guard, so what else do you really need? The only bad part is that it's restricted to when your opponent's Vanguard attacks, but I guess that's usually when you're using a perfect guard against most decks, so it's actually alright. Next, we're going to go over another card that's basically a staple, which is Septgull, and I get the pun in his name now, Sept as in 7, so it's, we're going to go over that 7. When you ride him or call him from hand, you can Soul Blast 1 and reveal an Alt Mile in your hand. If you do search your deck for up to 1 7k power card with the Brave ability, call it to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. That searches through a lot of your grade 1s, some of them, well, one of them we're going to, no, actually 2 of them we're going to go into in this set breakdown. So it's really nice because you can do it on turn 2, which is super cool. You can do several of them, so you can do some insane early rush and just like build up tempo really easily, which I like a lot. And then he has GB1 Brave. When this unit attacks, he gets plus 2k until the end of that battle, so 11k attacker once that early rush is over. So overall really good. It's just so nice for that early aggression, early tempo, like you're building up numbers very fast, and I really like it for that. Next is a new card drawn by Lack, which I really like, and it pops out super strong. So Lunar Fang Knight Phalanx. If you have a Vanguard with a Brave ability, this unit gets plus 1k and resist, main part being the resist. And then GB2 Brave, during your turn, if you have a Vanguard with an alt mile in its card name, all your front row units get plus 2k and resist. So again, resist. Really good. You can search this with Septgull, which is obviously very cool because he does have Brave, and so overall just a very solid grade 1 for very obvious reasons, because having more resist in a deck that relies on rearguards is definitely a good thing. Next is Knight of Favorable Odds Ascanius. When you call him from hand specifically, counterblast 1 and reveal an alt mile. If you do, search your deck for a 7k power unit with a Brave ability, call it to rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and GB1 Brave, he gets plus 2k. So again, calls out 7ks, but I think Septgull does a bit better than him. You don't really need too many cards in your deck dedicating to the same like restricted search. Next is a common that I actually like a lot, which is Knight of Connection Pictus. When he's ridden or called, you can discard a card from your hand. If you do, search your deck for up to 1 alt mile in his card and reveal it, and if this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, you ride that alt mile as stand, but if this Pictus is called, then you just put the alt mile into your hand, and then you shuffle your deck. So no matter what, he'll fix you into the right alt mile, which is definitely nice. I've seen a lot of Brave lists actually running him as the backup grade 3, which I don't blame them for doing, because he's 11k, and with his second skill, GB1 Brave, at the beginning of your battle phase, he gets plus 5 cancel end of turn. So, again, super cool. Beginning of battle phase, meaning like even if you add up cards in hand with drive checks and stuff like that, he's still gonna retain that plus 5k power, which I think is really nice. Next is Big Sword Angel. GB1 Brave. When he attacks, if the number of cards in your hand is less than your opponent's, he gets plus 5k for each card that your opponent has more than you. I think that's a really, I mentioned this in the box opening too, it's a really cool way to phrase the skill. I think it's just like smart, and again, you can run him as like a 1-off. He's a grade 2 with 7k, but he can actually build up power quite hard because again, you're playing Brave, so you're gonna have less cards than your opponent anyway until you kill them. So I think it's overall a fairly solid choice. Obviously not a 4-of or like even a 2-of. I play like a 1-of because you can search him out quite reliably, so it's quite nice. Next is Gyunmi, which has Brave. You may pay, retire a Gyunmi as the cost for Stride, which is cool because you can search this out early on, and then you can actually, you don't even have to wait for GB1. On first Stride, you can actually use this skill to stride into it without discarding anything from hand, which is super nice. So it's actually a nice card. I think people are running it like 2 or like 1 even, just because like it's good for just early times, but you're not really going to use it that many times anyway, and sometimes you do want to discard for the Stride just to put yourself into the Brave range. Next is the new starter, which is Blinking Knight Milius. So Milius has received an upgrade, and his skill is when an attack hits during the battle, this unit boosted a unit with a Brave ability, you can put him into your soul. If you do, look at the top 10 cards of your deck, reveal up to 2 alt miles from among them and put them into your hand after revealing them, and then put one of them into your hand and one of them into your soul and shuffle your deck. But then if you revealed only one card, then you just put it into your hand, which is nice because, you actually gain something into your hand. You can fix your rides and whatnot, so it's pretty cool. It's not a direct searcher, but top 10 will usually get you something. So that's why people are running the older alt mile as a backup, because then you can actually search him off of this. So it's overall quite good, and I think the starter is quite nice too. You just run the old starter in the main deck and just search it out when you need it. Next is a card that people were super disappointed by, which is Knight of Vibrancy Leirdis. So this is a Brave crit. People were hoping this would be an unlocker, but instead you can put it into the soul to choose one of your units with the Brave ability and give it plus 5 cancel on turn. So sadly not an unlocker, but still an okay skill, I'd say. It's just unfortunate that it's not an unlocker after being hyped up to possibly be one, because like before, the rearguard centric clans were getting the unlockers, and then the biggest, most rearguard centric clan of all doesn't get one. So I mean, technically they already had it with like the Alfred support, but come on. And then the final card for Royals and this entire set breakdown is the reprint of Heavenly Decree alt mile, which used to be the main grade 3, but is still run as a backup. So that's gonna be it for the Royal Paladin part. Brave as a whole is looking very solid for the current meta, and honestly, I really like what the meta is after this set. I think it's done a lot of interesting things. There's been a lot of power creep, I will admit, but I think it's also to match up whatever's going to be coming afterwards with the new mechanic, so that these recently supported clans can actually survive whatever the new mechanic brings. We'll see what that is. As I'm recording this, there's still a few days before the announcement. When you're seeing this, it might have already been announced. It might be the day before it gets announced, we'll see. But I'm going to try to get this out before that actually does happen. So that's going to be it for this set breakdown. Let me know what you guys thought, as well as what are your most hyped cards from this set and what you're planning on playing. So that's going to be it for me today. Don't forget to hit that bell button, as well as check out the social medias in the description and join the Discord server if you haven't already. So, but on that note, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.